All right, folks, we have a bevy of stories for you today about the Nintendo Switch 2. And yes, today is the launch day for Pokemon Legends ZA. I want to make sure I shout out Nintendo. They did happen this time, at least, to send me a copy of the game, including the Switch 2 upgrade pack. So thank you so much to Nintendo. We'll probably stream a little bit of it tonight while we're doing our Q&A. I'll talk about my plan for that later. But we also might have a bonus giveaway tonight as well, for those wondering. And no, it's not for Legends ZA. It's for actually a competitor's product that's also on Switch 1 that is really popular right now. So we're going to talk about that later. But I want to get into what's going on here because we have just so much to get into. There's a manga being made about Masahiro Sakurai's life. That's really interesting. Nintendo does talk about the hacking that they supposedly had happened to them. And we're not talking about the Terror Leak. We're talking about the other one with this hacking group that claimed to have Nintendo information and more. There's just a lot going on. But before we dive in, I want to remind you about today's sponsor. I used to budget with spreadsheets and I hated it. Absolutely hated it until I found Rocket Money. Well, that's what's really cool because today's sponsor is indeed Rocket Money. This is a personal finance app and it allows you to manage subscriptions, lower bills, and make a custom budget and grow your savings all in just one place. In fact, it's like an app on your phone. It's pretty crazy. Now, I love using Rocket Money to cancel unwanted subscriptions. That's a big one in my house. Once you connect to your bank account, Rocket Money identifies all of your subscriptions in a single list. From there, you can select the ones you don't want anymore, and Rocket Money may be able to cancel with just a few taps. I also like to use this app to help me manage and set budgets, especially when I'm trying to save for vacations, and even occasionally negotiate on my behalf to lower some of my bills. Rocket Money has just made me more aware than ever where my money is going and how I can find a way to save. To save more and spend less, join the over 5 million members using Rocket Money today. Click the link in the description or scan the QR code on the screen to get started for free. Thanks again to Rocket Money for sponsoring this video. All right, with that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into today's first story. And Nintendo denies a data leak for online reports. So what's going on here? Nintendo has denied reports earlier this week that it had been hacked by Crimson Collective, telling Japanese news publication Sankei Shimbun that there's no confirmation of any leakage of personal information nor any breach of development or business information. The news that Nintendo had suffered a data breach spread like wildfire on social media, and it thankfully turns out that the reports were in error. And the reports weren't in error. The reports were just... The hack wasn't that big of a deal. So basically, what we were able to glean from the information that was presented forward on what was hacked was essentially the news website of the Japanese website. So they have like a news section, and that news section got compromised, and people were able to download all of the background information from that particular section of the website. Now, the thing is, unless there's reports prepared for unannounced games in that section of the website, there's zero useful information there. There's no personal data, there's no login information, there's no admin information, and more importantly, there's no new game information. So while the hack is probably real and someone did actually download those files, hence why they were able to show proof, the hack doesn't really get anything that matters. The reason that part of the website was vulnerable is because there's nothing important on that part of the website. So the hack was real. It just, they don't have anything worth a damn. Next up, though, we're going to talk briefly about a very popular game out on Nintendo Switch and other platforms, Ark Ultimate Survivor Edition. So it had a new patch for Ark Survival Evolved essentially here, launching. It didn't launch today, it launched yesterday. But it says Studio Wildcard and development partner Grove Street Games announced that coming today is a major patch for Ark Ultimate Survivor Edition, delivering full backward compatibility and performance enhancements on Switch 2. The patch enables smoother gameplay with improved frame rate and higher resolution, upgraded shadow quality, and anti-aliasing quality, ensuring the definitive Ark experience on Nintendo's new system. So there you go. That's pretty cool. Really happy to see updates coming out for games like this to make them run and look better on Switch 2. You always like to see stuff like that. You know what you also like to see? Actual fact-based information coming out from the Terra leaks. Now, look, I've been talking about the Terra leaks for days, and there's not anything crazy new we're going to be talking today. However, game budgets came out, and it turns out those game budgets, if you dig into the documents, are not the entire budget for the game. So when you see things like $20 million for Gen 10 and you freak out like, oh, that's not a lot of money for a Pokemon game, note that is not actually the complete budget for the game. Well, Necrofelipe Lima thankfully did dive into the documents, and he wanted to make a clarification after spending the entire afternoon and night conducting research on the leaked documents. The budget of the Pokemon games is not what was listed, at least not all of it. According to Game Freak's documents, that is an initial project budget. It does not consider external investment like creatures or other companies, and even less the gross cost of marketing. This cost covers only the initial research and development, as well as the first presentable build that will be shown to a group, as in like Game Freak, the Pokemon Company, Nintendo, etc. The 10th generation does not cost just 20 million. The project has advanced to the point of exceeding 60 to 80 million in about 2 to 3 years without even touching on marketing, not to mention the investment in the new graphics engine. So take it easy at this point with they paid for a coixa of the game production. It's not true. So essentially what they're saying here is, no, the story going out there about 13 million for Legends and 20 million, none of these stories are actually 100% accurate. These are real numbers they used, but for initial research and development and the first presentable demo to Game Freak, Pokemon Company, Nintendo, higher ups, right? They had to have a demo, a concept demo to show off their ideas. So yeah, that's just the initial money coming in. That is not the full cost of development. That is not the full investment from everyone involved in development. It's also doesn't include the marketing budget, which is often a really big part of game budget. So when you see, oh, they spent $400 million on a game, well, some of that was a marketing budget. That includes the marketing budget. This time around, this figure does not include the marketing budget. So just pointing out that, no, they did not just spend $20 million on Gen 10. They spent more. We don't know how much more, but the estimates of 60 to 80 million, they seem sound at least. Next up, because Necrofelipe Lima did such good work, I figured we'll feature his website this week for the Japanese sales chart update. Plus, he has a really cool way that he does the charting on his website I wasn't aware of, so I actually kind of like the visual look of this. So the Japanese sales for October 6th through October 12th, Mario Kart World retakes the lead. All right, let's get down to the actual numbers. These come from Famitsu. You can see he has it listed by game and platform here. So Mario Kart World is number one with 37,502 sales, now selling 1.8 million, likely to cross 1.9 million next week. And then before the end of the year, they'll probably be crossing 2 million in Mario Kart World sales. Ghost of Yotei drops down to number 2. It was previously number 1 at 26,776. Then you see Battlefield 6 chiming in, a brand new release at number 3 for PlayStation 5 for 23,292. Then you see Mario Galaxy 1 and 2 for Switch 1 at number 4, holding steady at 20,000. You see Little Nightmares 3, a brand new release at 17,800 on Nintendo Switch. Then you see Donkey Kong Bonanza at number 6 at 7,420 on Switch 2, Little Nightmares 3 for PlayStation 5 at 7,040, and you see Little Nightmares 3 for Switch 2 at almost the same numbers as PlayStation 5 at 6,924. A negligible difference between the two. Already Switch 2 being able to perform that well with a multi-platform third-party game that happens to be on PlayStation 5 and Switch 1, and yet it's still able to do basically PS5 numbers. That bodes well for Nintendo, of course. And look, that's a little under half of what it did on the OG Switch, which again, not too bad considering the OG Switch has a much larger install base. So I gotta say overall, I think this is actually a pretty strong performance for Little Nightmares 3 in Japan on Switch 2 in particular. Then you get the Digimon Story Time Stranger. That one's on PlayStation 5 at 6,595, and it rounds out with the Switch 1 version of Minecraft. And that has now crossed 4 million on Switch 1 in Japan. Now we get to console sales, and look, 46,842. So a small increase over last week and the week prior, bringing us all the way up to 2.2 million in sales in Japan. That's really impressive. Switch OLED still just chiming in at 15,000 units there. Just over 9 million of those exist in Japan. Then you see the PlayStation 5, the base model at 10,085. That's a 5.8 million in Japan. You see the Switch Lite chiming in with 6,274. That was at 6.6 million. I would assume PlayStation 5, the base model, will eventually pass the Switch Lite. And then you see the PlayStation 5 Pro chiming in at 2,500. There's been about 256,000 of those units that have sold. PlayStation 5 digital version is sold 2,208. That has now crossed 1 million units in Japan. Then you see the OG original Switch at 1,787 units. That has crossed the 20 million mark in Japan. Then you see the Xbox Series Digital Edition of 142, the Xbox Series S 62, the Series X at 33, and yes, even the PlayStation 4 slowly crawling, trying to hit 8 million units someday in Japan. That said, folks, that's the updated charts for this week in Japan. Let me know what you think about this stuff down in the comments below. Obviously, things are being pretty steady over there. Now, we have one more rumor to go over in regards to Pokemon Generation 10, and this is not part of the Terra Leak documents. So, again, take this with whatever grains of salt you want from Central Leaks. It says we have some new information about Pokemon Wind and Wave, that's Gen 10, that wasn't part of the Terra Leak documents. It features ride Pokemon. The riding Pokemon, though, has been scaled down significantly from what the document says. The documents kind of suggested you could ride every Pokemon. Things that are scaled down from that concept, which I think most of us expected that they weren't going to leave in, just ride every single Pokemon. The character bios and stories have changed a lot, which shouldn't be a surprise. Again, we're talking about Gen 10, and we're talking about years old documents, so a lot's probably changed. The game is turn-based, so if you enjoyed the Pokemon Legends ZA battle system and wanted to return in Gen 10, make sure you let Pokemon know, but obviously that's not the system they're going with, which isn't a surprise. They didn't go with the full way of capturing Pokemon in Legends Arceus in Scarlet and Violet either. So yeah, things like this, like the real-time battle system and the way that capturing Pokemon worked, for that stuff to make it into Gen 10 or eventually Generation 11, it's probably always going to be a generation behind. I'm very curious. Of course, I haven't played Legends ZA yet, but I'm very curious if Generation 10 will have more of the Legends Arceus catching mechanics than were in Scarlet and Violet. That would be really cool, but we'll have to wait and see, of course, because Gen 10 hasn't even been revealed. All right, we're not done here. There's been some headlines running around that I find fascinating because they seem to be missing context from the patent, which, look, this happens. Whenever you guys look at game patents or new information out there for unannounced or unreleased products, it's very easy to jump to conclusions because, look, we all have what we think will happen. We all have what we want to happen, and we're always looking for information to support either or. What I'm going to do here is just present the new patent as it is, and you guys can make your decision, and I'll present both sides of the argument. I want to obviously give a small bit of credit here. Mike Odyssey was the first person I'm aware of online that pointed out this patent exists, but the patent is public and does come from the U.S. Patent Office, so USPTO. All right, let's go ahead and go to this patent. And you'll see it says an information processing system includes a parent apparatus and a child apparatus. The parent apparatus acquires parent apparatus operation data relating to an operation on the operation device of the parent apparatus and acquires child apparatus operation data from the child apparatus. The parent apparatus performs information processing based on the parent apparatus operation data and the received child apparatus operation data and generates a first image and a second image that is a UI image based on the information processing. The parent apparatus outputs one of the first image and the second image to display device of the parent apparatus and transmits the other image to the child apparatus. The child apparatus transmits the child apparatus operation data related to an operation on an operation device of the child apparatus. Basically, another screen does something, it appears on the new screen. The new screen does something, it appears on the second screen. Dual screens, right, baby? DS. That's kind of what you're seeing here. This was filed back on April 1st, 2025. All right, so as we come down here, you can see, hey, here's the second image, which is like a map, right? We have a map going on. You guys might remember this stuff from the DS and 3DS. And so, again, people are using this as an argument that this is proof that the DS and 3DS are coming to NSO, which could be, and proof that there is going to be a second screen attachment. We've had a different patent about a second screen attachment. So as we scroll down here, you can see a regular Nintendo Switch here, not a Switch 2, which is interesting because Switch 2 does exist and was announced back then. So there's no reason they couldn't put a Switch 2 in this patent, but they didn't. They put an original Switch. And as we scroll down here, you're going to see this image here. This image here, I know it's a little sideways for you guys. This does not, to me, look like DS functionality. So this is where it sounds like DS and 3DS, and there's going to be some images that maybe make you think it is, but then you look at how it operates here, and this does not look like that kind of thing at all. So you have your parent device, your main screen. It is sitting here in docked mode, right? And then you have this area here where all the information, the inputs from this screen and the second screens are coming in. Guys, I kind of think that this is just game share, if I'm completely honest. This to me looks like game share. I could be wrong, but a lot of this, as you see the multiple devices here, this really feels like a game share pattern. I'm going to be frank with you. That's what this image looks like. As we scroll down, you can see the child apparatus. So, like one of those switches, you can see the parent apparatus, obviously connected to a TV or whatever. All right. Then you see obviously another map image, and then you see an item select screen. And this is where people are like, well, that reminds me of 3DS, where you have like the main screen going on, but then you have like a select screen down below. I do agree that some of these images say that. So I'm not going to sit here and deny this as a possibility, right? But what I am going to point out is that there's also that other explanation of it kind of looking like it's a form of game share. So obviously we could be wrong about this. None of us know. We'll link to the patent down below if you guys want to go check it out and give your thoughts on this. Do you think this means DS and 3DS with a second screen is coming to Switch 2 or Switch? Or do you think that this is just a patent that's related to game share? Let me know down below. Or maybe you think it's completely unrelated and totally something else. Or maybe it is about DS and 3DS and screen stuff, but it's actually a scrapped idea and not one they're going to move forward with, since no such thing has been announced. We'll have to wait and see. You know what is announced now at this point? Well, Nintendo's making a lot of money off of phones. Who knew? Nintendo rakes in $2.2 billion in revenue from mobile games. Now, I do believe this is in totality. So since they started making mobile games, not just for this year, Nintendo first dabbled in mobile gaming when they released Miitomo back in 2016. But in a breakdown from the game business, citing data from Sensor Tower, Nintendo has amassed $2.2 billion in revenue across 9 different games that have been released, not counting Pokemon Go. So this has nothing to do with their cut of Pokemon Go revenue. Leading the pack is Fire Emblem Heroes, which pulled in a whopping $1.1 billion. And you can see here, released in February 2017, it's made $1.1 billion off just 19 million downloads. Then you see Mario Kart Tour has 290 million downloads. That's insane, the amount of people who've downloaded Tour. But only made 365 million revenue in comparison. Obviously, that's a lot of revenue, but short of that billion, right? Animal Crossing Pocket Camp had 75.5 million install base, made 349 million. I see Dragalia Lost. This has been discontinued. There was just 4.3 million installs, but hey, it did have 167 million in revenue. So that's quite a lot of revenue. Again, revenue isn't profits, but that's quite a lot of revenue compared to downloads there. Super Mario Run, which is still active, 384 million. So the largest install base yet, but this is where we see that $10 strategy Nintendo went with to buy the whole game. Only 96 million in actual money made. And I know that's still a lot of money for a mobile game, guys, but Nintendo obviously thought it was going to make a lot more than that. Pikmin Bloom, released in October of 2021, is still active at 7.5 million install base, 84.8 million that it's made in revenue. Dr. Mario World, which sadly was discontinued, had 13.4 million install base, made 13.8 million in revenue. Miitomo, which has been discontinued, had 20 million install base, made about 3.7 million in revenue. And then the recently released Fire Emblem Shadows, this one's only been out for a handful of weeks, has 800,000 downloads so far, and it's made about 200,000 in revenue. But again, it's too new in the market to really know how that's going to do long term. We already saw what Fire Emblem Heroes did long term. So kind of interesting. Obviously, I'm not really big on Nintendo's mobile side of things, but it is something to pay attention to, and just another revenue stream for Nintendo. Now, this is one I did not expect to see today, and that is because Masahiro Sakurai is being turned into an educational manga. That's right. It's being turned into one, according to Go Nintendo here. And you can kind of see an image of it. I think this is kind of interesting. You see the GameCube controller, a Switch Pro controller. Obviously, you see, does he use a split keyboard? Huh, I didn't know Master Sakurai might use a split keyboard. You see an N64 cartridge, a Game Boy cartridge there, a couple screens. And this is obviously supposed to be Sakurai sitting in the chair. So you've played Masahiro Sakurai's games, you've watched his YouTube series, you've seen his Nintendo Directs, and soon enough you'll be able to read through his life story in manga form. Masahiro Sakurai, Making the World More Fun with Game, is releasing in Japan on November 18th, 2025 for $10, and is set to feature the behind-the-scenes story of the birth of games that entertained the world, Kirby and Smash Bros. This manga packs in 160 pages and 6 chapters, which breaks down into the following: Young Sakurai in games, the birth of Kirby, the beginning of Super Smash Bros., the founding of Sora Incorporated, the legacy, and a beacon for the future. This actually sounds really cool. If there's ever an English version of this, I might buy one. Obviously, the Japanese version won't matter to me as much, but I would love an English translated version of this. I'll spend $20 for an English translated version. Masahiro Sakurai himself is overseeing the manga, and there's no one better to make sure everything featured in this release is accurate. Unfortunately, there's no word on localization right now, but hopefully it's just a matter of time until that happens. If you take a closer look at the manga, you can find a series of preview pages here, and we'll link to all this down below. So I am really excited for Masahiro Sakurai. I think, he cares very much about educating people. You saw this with his YouTube series, where he really wanted to explain the ins and outs of actual game development and what goes into things, and how much we need to be appreciative of all the various aspects of it. And so I would say a book about how Kirby and Smash got as big as it was, what it was like moving away from the really big companies to form your own, and Sora Ltd, or Sora Incorporated, I guess I should say. And, I'm very curious just what his thoughts are in the future of gaming. So feels like something that I'd want to buy, but again, I gotta wait for a localized version, which hopefully happens at some point. Anyways, folks, I want to thank you so much for tuning in. I am Nathaniel RoboGents from Nintendo Prime. Oh, it's been a good one. It's been a long one, and I'll catch you tonight on our live stream, where we're going to be streaming, Q&A. There's also potential that I'm playing a little bit of Legends EA. We'll see how much Legends EA I decide to play, if any. But it's something I'm at least debating on turning on tonight. But we'll see, because the Brewers are playing tonight as well. Something for me to keep in mind. A lot of my, we split all over the place here. I'm trying to read chat, trying to play Legends EA, trying to watch the Brewer game. It's a lot all at once. Is it possible? Not really, but I'll figure it out. Bye, everyone.